The three black ships moved through space like silent hunters. They came from far beyond the distant stars, their metal hulls cutting through the darkness without making a sound. Inside the lead ship, Commander Vexus Thera studied the blue and green planet that hung before them like a jewel against the black sky. Another world ripe for conquest, he said to his second in command, Scout Captain Zarketh. His voice carried the confidence of someone who had done this many times before. Zarketh nodded as he looked at his scanning equipment. The third planet from their yellow star, Commander. Early readings show it has plenty of water and a good atmosphere. The locals appear to be a young species. Commander Vexithara smiled, showing his sharp teeth. The Zephyrian people had conquered 47 worlds in the past 100 years. Each time it had been easy. The local species would fight for a few days, maybe a week, then surrender when they saw how powerful the Zephyrian military was. This world would be no different. Begin the standard survey, Vexthera ordered. I want to know everything about their defenses, their population, and their technology level. The High Command expects a full report within 10 days. Far below on Earth, Captain Jake Morrison sat in the control room of Earth Defense Station, Alpha 7. The station floated in space, hidden behind the moon where most people never saw it. Jake had been watching the stars for 15 years, waiting for something like this to happen. Captain, I'm getting strange readings on the deep space. Sensors, said Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from her position at the communications desk. Her fingers moved quickly over the control panel as she tried to make sense of what she was seeing. Jake walked over to look at her screen. 3 objects were moving slowly through the outer edge of their solar system. They were too big to be asteroids and too organized to be space junk. How long have they been there? About 6 hours, sir. They appeared just past the asteroid belt and have been moving toward Earth ever since. Amy's voice was calm, but Jake could hear the worry. Underneath, Jake picked up his communication device and called Earth. This is Alpha 7 calling Space Command. We have possible contact with unknown vessels, requesting immediate orders. The reply came back within minutes. General Peter Collins himself was on the line. Jake, this is what we've been preparing for. Activate Observation Protocol 7, watch them, record everything, but do not let them know we see them. Understood, General. Jake turned to his crew. You heard the man. Silent running from now on. Amy, get our stealth satellites in position around those ships. I want to know what they're doing every second. The Zephyrian scouts began their work with practiced efficiency. They had done this so many times that it had become routine. Their advanced scanners could see through clouds and penetrate deep into the ground. They mapped every major city, counted the people, and studied the military bases they could find. Interesting, said Zarketh as he looked at his readings. They have divided their planet into many small territories. Each area seems to have its own military force. Primitive organization, Vexithara replied. When we invade, they won't be able to work together to fight us. Their divided nature will make conquest even easier. The aliens spent the next several days studying Earth. They watched the humans going about their daily lives, unaware that they were being observed. The Zephyrians saw cars moving on roads, planes flying through the sky, and ships crossing the oceans. To them, it all looked very basic. Their technology appears to be several hundred years behind ours, Zarketh reported. Their flying machines are crude, and their weapons are simple projectile devices. I count approximately 50,000 military personnel across the largest continent. Vexithara was pleased. 50,000 soldiers to defend an entire continent. This will be our easiest conquest yet. Back on Earth, Jake and his team worked around the clock to gather information about their visitors. The alien ships stayed just far enough away to avoid easy detection. But human technology was better than the aliens realized. I've been listening to their communications, Amy reported during one of their briefing sessions. I can't understand their language yet, but I'm starting to recognize patterns. They seem to be cataloging our defenses. Dr. Alex Carter joined them from Earth's Xenobiology Research Center. He was a thin man with gray hair who had spent his whole life studying the possibility of alien contact. If they're studying our defenses, that suggests they're planning something hostile. Most peaceful species would try to communicate first. Jake nodded grimly. That matches what General Collins thinks. He's put the entire solar defense network on quiet alert. Everyone knows something is happening, but we're keeping it secret from the general population. What about the other stations? Amy asked. Are Mars Base and Luna Station seeing anything? They're tracking the ships too, but maintaining radio silence. We don't want the aliens to realize how well coordinated our defenses really are. The Zephyrian survey continued for 2 weeks. Every day they gathered more information about Earth and its people. They studied human culture through television and internet signals. They watched news broadcasts and entertainment programs, learning about human society. They seem to be a warlike species, observed Zarketh. Their entertainment is full of conflict and their news reports show fighting in many regions. Good, said Vexithera. That means they're used to fighting each other instead of working together. When we arrive with superior technology, they'll panic and surrender quickly. The aliens also studied human military equipment. They saw tanks rolling through training exercises, jets flying in formation, and soldiers practicing with their weapons. Everything looked primitive to their advanced eyes. Their largest flying machines can barely reach their own moon. Zarketh laughed. Our smallest fighters are faster and more powerful than their best aircraft. But the humans were more clever than the aliens realized. Colonel Lisa Bennett sat in a deep underground bunker, coordinating a massive deception operation. She had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. Operation Shadowfall is working perfectly, she reported to General Collins. Our fake military displays are convincing them that we're much weaker than we really are. They're seeing exactly what we want them to see. Major Chris Taylor, who worked with intelligence networks around the world, added his report. Every military base they've scanned has shown them outdated equipment and reduced personnel numbers. They have no idea about our hidden installations or our real capabilities. The deception was working better than anyone had hoped. The aliens were scanning Earth's surface, but they couldn't see through the careful illusions that humanity had prepared. Old tanks were left in the open while advanced weapons stayed hidden underground. Small groups of soldiers trained invisible areas while massive armies remained concealed in deep bunkers. As the 2 weeks passed, Commander Vexithera grew more confident about the coming invasion. His reports to the Zephyrian High Command painted a picture of a weak, divided world that would fall easily to their superior military might. I recommend we proceed with a minimal invasion force, he transmitted to his homeworld. 10,000. Troops should be more than sufficient to conquer this planet. Their primitive technology and small military will pose no significant threat to our operations. The response from High Command came back quickly. Approved. Prepare for invasion in 30 days. This conquest should take no more than 1 week. Neither side knew that they were about to participate in the most important moment in galactic history. The aliens believed they had found another easy target. The humans knew they were about to reveal a secret that would change everything. The stage was set for a confrontation that would surprise everyone involved. Deep beneath the mountains of Colorado, Colonel Lisa Bennett walked through miles of underground tunnels that most people on Earth didn't know existed. The hidden base stretched for kilometers in every direction, carved from solid rock over the past 50 years. Thousands of soldiers lived and worked in these tunnels, preparing for a day that had finally arrived. How are our surface displays working? Lisa asked Major Chris Taylor as they entered the main command center. The room was filled with screens showing fake military bases around the world. Perfect, Colonel. The aliens have been scanning the same decoy installations for 3 weeks now. They see exactly what we want them to see. Chris pointed to one of the screens that showed an old military base in Texas. They think this is one of our main defensive positions. It's actually been empty for 10 years, Lisa smiled. Operation Shadowfall was the biggest deception in human history. Every major government on Earth was working together to fool the alien scouts. They showed the aliens old equipment, empty bases, and small groups of soldiers while hiding the real military forces deep underground. What about the fake communications? Lisa asked. Working like a charm, we're broadcasting radio chatter between fake units, making it sound like we only have about 50,000 troops total. The aliens are listening to every word and believing all of it. High above them, the Zephyrian scout ships continued their detailed study of Earth. Commander Vexithera was pleased with what his teams were finding. The planet looked even weaker than their first scans had suggested. Scout Captain Zarketh report on their defensive capabilities, Vexithara ordered as he stood on the bridge of his ship. Zarketh looked at his data pad. Commander, their military technology is even more primitive than we first thought. Their flying machines use simple fuel combustion. Their ground vehicles are slow and lightly armored. Most importantly, their weapons are basic projectile systems that couldn't penetrate our ship armor. Excellent. What about their space capabilities? Very limited, sir. They have a few small stations orbiting their planet and have sent some basic probes to their nearby moon. Nothing that could threaten our fleet. Vexithara was satisfied. This conquest would be so easy that the High Command might not even bother sending their best troops. Continue monitoring their communications. I want to know if they discover our presence. What the aliens didn't know was that humans had been listening to their conversations for weeks. Dr. Alex Carter worked day and night in his laboratory, slowly breaking down the alien language. Every word the Zephyrians spoke was recorded and studied. I'm starting to understand their basic communication patterns, Alex reported to General Peter Collins during their daily briefing. They're definitely planning an invasion. They keep talking about conquest and how weak we are. General Collins nodded grimly. How much time do we have? Based on their conversations, I think they're planning to attack in about 2 weeks. They're waiting for some kind of invasion fleet to arrive. Good. That gives us time to complete the final preparations. The general turned to Admiral Kate Murphy, who had just arrived from the Luna base. Kate, how are our hidden fleets doing? Admiral Murphy had spent the past month secretly moving ships and personnel throughout the solar system. All positions are ready, General. We have battle groups stationed behind the moon, in the asteroid belt, and on the far side of Mars. The aliens have no idea we have ships out there. What about the planetary defenses? Every major population center has hidden weapon platforms ready to deploy. The aliens think they're looking at defenseless cities. They don't know about the weapons hidden underneath every major building. The deception was more complex than the aliens could imagine. For 70 years, ever since humans first developed space travel, they had been preparing for this moment. Every tunnel, every hidden base, every secret weapon had been built with one purpose in mind: to fool an alien invasion force into thinking Earth was helpless. Captain Jake Morrison continued his watch from Defense Station Alpha 7. His team had become experts at tracking the alien ships without being detected. Amy, are they still following the same patrol pattern? Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez nodded. Yes, sir. They make the same circuit around our planet every day. They're being very systematic about their scanning. That works in our favor. Predictable. Enemies are easier to handle. Jake looked at the holographic display that showed the positions of all human forces throughout the solar system. The aliens saw none of it. On Earth's surface, the deception continued every day. Colonel Rick Davis commanded a fake military base in Nevada that the aliens scanned regularly. His job was to make sure they saw exactly the right amount of activity, to seem realistic but not threatening. Remember, everyone, Rick told his small team of actors who pretended to be soldiers. When you're outside, move like you're tired and poorly trained. The aliens need to think our military is weak and unprepared. The fake soldiers practiced looking sloppy and disorganized whenever they knew the aliens were scanning. They used old weapons from museums and drove vehicles that were decades out of date. Every performance was designed to convince the aliens that human military technology was primitive. Meanwhile, Captain Nicole Wright led a very different kind of operation. She commanded one of the real military units hidden deep underground. Her soldiers were equipped with weapons and armor that was more advanced than anything the aliens had seen. How many troops do we have ready for deployment? Nicole asked her second in command. Over 2 million soldiers in our region alone, Captain. And that's just the ones in our tunnel system. There are similar numbers hidden under every major continent. The scale of the human deception was enormous. While the aliens counted 50,000 troops on the surface, there were actually over 2 billion soldiers hidden in underground bases around the world. The fake displays on the surface were hiding the largest military force in human history. Dr. Emma Walsh worked with teams of scientists who studied every piece of alien technology they could observe from a distance. Her job was to find weaknesses in the alien ships and weapons. Their ships are powerful, but they have some interesting design flaws, Emma reported to the military commanders. They seem to rely heavily on energy shields, which means they might be vulnerable to certain types of attacks. What kind of attacks? Asked General Collins. Coordinated strikes from multiple directions. Their shields appear to be designed to handle attacks from one direction at a time. If we hit them from several angles simultaneously, we might be able to overwhelm their defenses. This information was crucial for the coming battle. The humans were not just hiding their numbers, they were also studying their enemy and preparing strategies that the aliens would never expect. Commander Vexithara grew more confident each day. His latest report to the Zephyrian High Command was full of good news. The target planet continues to show no signs of advanced military capability, he transmitted. Their largest defensive installations house no more than a few hundred soldiers each. Their weapons are primitive projectile systems that pose no threat to our armor. I estimate that a single battle group of 10,000 troops will be sufficient for complete planetary conquest. The response from High Command came back within hours. Excellent work, Commander. The invasion fleet is being prepared. You will have 15 ships and 10,000 of our finest warriors. This conquest should be completed within days of arrival. Vexithara was pleased. This would be one of the easiest victories in Zephyrian history. The primitive humans would surrender as soon as they saw the power of the invasion fleet. But deep, in the tunnels beneath Earth, another conversation was taking place. General Collins spoke with the leaders of every major nation on the planet. The aliens have taken the bait completely, he reported. They think we have 50,000 soldiers total. They have no idea about our real capabilities. When do we reveal the truth? Asked the president of the North American Federation. When their invasion fleet arrives and it's too late for them to call for help. We'll let them commit to the attack, then show them what Earth is really capable of. The stage was set for the greatest surprise in galactic history. The aliens thought they were about to conquer a primitive world. Instead, they were about to discover that they had stumbled into a trap that had been 70 years in the making. Dr. Alex Carter rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the computer screen in his laboratory. He had been working for 18 hours straight, but finally, he had done it. The alien language was starting to make sense. Words and phrases that had been meaningless for weeks were now becoming clear. I've got it, he said to his assistant, Dr. Ben Parker. Listen to this recording from yesterday. The alien voices filled the room, speaking in their strange, clicking language. But now Alex could understand some of what they were saying. Commander, the invasion fleet will arrive in 5 days, one voice said. 10,000 troops, 15 battleships. The humans will surrender quickly once they see our power. Alex felt his heart racing. 5 days. That was much sooner than anyone had expected. He grabbed his phone and called General Collins immediately. General, this is Alex. I've broken their language code. The invasion is happening in 5 days, not 2 weeks like we thought. There was silence on the other end of the phone for a moment. Then General Collins spoke, his voice calm but serious. Are you certain about this? Completely certain, sir. They're talking about their final preparations. Their main fleet is already on the way. Thank you, Alex. This changes everything. Within minutes, emergency signals were being sent to every hidden base on Earth and throughout the solar system. The message was simple but urgent. Defense Protocol Omega was now active. It was time to wake up the real human military. President Helen Brooks sat in the underground command center beneath Washington. She had known this day would come eventually, but now that it was here, she felt the weight of history on her shoulders. General Collins, are we ready? She asked. As ready as we can be, Madam President. Our forces have been preparing for this moment for 70 years. It's time to show these aliens what humanity is really capable of. The president took a deep breath and spoke the words that would change everything. I hereby authorize the activation of Defense Protocol Omega. All hidden forces are cleared to reveal themselves and take defensive positions. Around the world, things began to happen that the alien scouts had never seen before. In the Nevada, Desert. The ground opened up and massive weapon platforms rose from beneath the sand. What had looked like empty wasteland was actually the roof of an enormous underground military base. Colonel Rick Davis watched from his command center as thousands of soldiers poured out of tunnels that had been hidden for decades. Advanced aircraft that the aliens had never seen before lifted off from secret runways deep underground. "All units, this is not a drill," Rick announced over the communication system. "Project Sleeping Giant is now active. Take your positions and prepare for contact." With hostile alien forces, similar scenes were happening all over the planet. In the forests of Canada, trees moved aside to reveal hidden missile launchers. In the mountains of Europe, entire hillsides opened up to show massive gun installations. Under the oceans, submarine bases that had been secret for 50 years began launching their fleets. Admiral Kate Murphy stood on the bridge of the battleship Houston, which had been hidden in a crater on the far side of the moon for the past 10 years. Around her, dozens of other warships were powering up their engines and weapon systems. "All ships, this is Admiral Murphy. We are now at full combat readiness. The aliens think we have a few small space stations. They're about to learn that. We have the largest space navy in the galaxy." The alien scouts were still orbiting Earth, completely unaware of what was happening below them. Commander Vexithara was reviewing the final invasion plans when Scout Captain Zarketh noticed something strange on his sensors. "Commander, I'm getting some unusual energy readings from the planet's surface," Zarketh reported. "There seems to be increased activity in several locations, probably just their primitive military trying to prepare some kind of defense," Vexithara replied without looking up from his plans. "It doesn't matter what they do. Our invasion fleet will be here in 4 days." But the energy readings were getting stronger. All across Earth, the continental defense grid was coming online for the first time in history. Weapon systems that had been built in secret over 7 decades were finally being activated. Captain Danny Clark stood in the control room of Defense Station Pacific 12, which had been disguised as a research platform in the middle of the ocean. Around him, his crew worked quickly to bring all systems online. "Stealth mode is being disabled, Captain," reported Lieutenant Kelly Roberts. "We're showing our true capabilities for the first time." "Good. Make sure our weapons are fully charged. When those alien ships arrive, we want to give them a proper welcome." The transformation was happening everywhere. Cities that had looked defenseless were suddenly bristling with weapon platforms. Empty fields revealed themselves to be cleverly disguised military bases. Even civilian buildings had hidden defensive systems built into their structures. Major Tony Rodriguez was amazed as he watched the defensive network activate from his position in the Texas Command Center. "I've been in the military for 20 years and I never knew we had this much firepower hidden away." "That was the point," replied Colonel Sandra Mitchell, who had helped design the hidden defense system. "If our own people didn't know about it, the aliens certainly wouldn't." The scale of the awakening military was beyond anything the Zephyrians could have imagined. What they thought was a planet with 50,000 soldiers was actually a fortress world with over 2 billion troops, all equipped with advanced weapons and supported by the most sophisticated defense network ever built. Dr. Emma Walsh worked frantically in her laboratory, analyzing the alien ships and looking for weaknesses. Now that humanity was revealing its true strength, every piece of information about the enemy was crucial. "I found something important," she announced to the military leaders. "The alien ships have a weakness in their communication systems. If we can jam their signals at the right frequency, they won't be able to coordinate their attacks or call for help." Lieutenant Colonel Matt Johnson took this information and began preparing electronic warfare systems that had been hidden throughout the solar system. "We can create a communication blackout that will isolate their invasion fleet from their home world. They'll be fighting blind." As the hours passed, more and more of humanity's hidden strength became visible. The Zephyrian scouts were beginning to notice that something was different, but they couldn't understand what they were seeing. "Commander, the energy readings from the planet are getting much stronger," Zarketh reported with growing concern. "I'm also detecting what might be spacecraft launching from various points on the surface." Vexithara finally looked at the sensor displays. What he saw made no sense. The readings showed military activity on a scale that seemed impossible for such a primitive world. Check your equipment, he ordered. These readings must be wrong. The humans don't have this kind of capability. But the readings were correct. Earth was transforming before their eyes from what appeared to be a defenseless world into the most heavily fortified planet in the galaxy. Weapon platforms were rising from every continent. Spacecraft were launching from hidden bases everywhere. The entire planet was revealing itself to be one enormous military installation. Captain Nicole Wright led her troops out of the underground tunnels where they had lived and trained for years. Above ground for the first time in months, her soldiers quickly took positions around the area where the alien scouts were expected to land. Remember your training, she told her troops. These aliens think we're primitive and weak. They're about to learn how wrong they are. The transformation was nearly complete. In just a few hours, Earth had gone from appearing to be a weak, divided world to revealing itself as the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. The trap was set, and the aliens had no idea what was waiting for them. High above, the Zephyrian invasion fleet was approaching the edge of the solar system, confident that they were about to conquer another helpless world. They had no way of knowing that they were flying into the biggest surprise in galactic history. The Zephyrian invasion fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, like a pack of hungry wolves. 15 massive warships appeared in the darkness, their hulls gleaming with weapons and armor that had conquered 47 worlds. Commander Vexithara stood on the bridge of the lead ship, feeling confident about another easy victory. All ships begin final approach to the target planet, he ordered. Prepare for immediate planetary assault. This should be over within hours. The fleet moved forward through space, their engines humming with power. Behind them, 3 smaller scout ships followed, including the one commanded by Scout Captain Zarketh. He was still worried about the strange energy readings they had detected from Earth, but his commander had dismissed his concerns. "Commander, I'm still getting those unusual readings from the planet," Zarketh reported over the communication system. "The energy levels are much higher than they should be for such a primitive world." "Ignore the readings," Vexithara replied. "Their technology is too simple to interfere with our sensors. Focus on the invasion plan." But as the fleet got closer to Earth, the readings became impossible to ignore. What had started as minor energy signatures were now showing up as massive power sources all across the planet. Zarketh stared at his instruments in confusion. "Commander, these readings are showing thousands of large energy sources. That's impossible based on what we observed during our scouting mission." For the first time, Vexithara felt a small doubt creep into his mind. He walked over to look at the sensor displays himself. What he saw made his blood run cold. The planet below them was lighting up like a star. Energy signatures were appearing everywhere. What had looked like empty land was now showing massive installations. Cities that had seemed defenseless were suddenly bristling with weapon systems. Most shocking of all, spacecraft were launching from the planet's surface in numbers that seemed impossible. "This cannot be right," Vexithara said, his voice shaking slightly. "Run a full sensor sweep. Check everything again." The results came back the same. The planet they thought was home to 50,000 primitive soldiers was actually showing military activity that dwarfed their own invasion fleet. The sensors were detecting millions of troops, thousands of spacecraft and weapon systems more advanced than anything in the Zephyrian military. Admiral Kate Murphy watched the alien fleet approach from her command ship hidden behind Earth's moon. Around her, hundreds of human warships were powering up their weapons and preparing for battle. "All ships, this is Admiral Murphy. The enemy fleet has entered our solar system. Prepare to reveal our presence on my command." The human ships had been hiding throughout the solar system for weeks, using advanced stealth technology that made them invisible to alien sensors. The Zephyrians had no idea they were flying into a trap that included the largest space navy ever assembled. On Earth, General Sandra Mitchell stood in the main command center, watching displays that showed the positions of every human military unit on the planet. What she saw would have amazed anyone who still believed Earth was defenseless. "All continental defense grids are fully operational," reported Colonel Lisa Bennett. "We have over 2 billion troops at combat readiness. Weapon platforms are online across every major population center." "Excellent," replied General Mitchell. It's time to show these aliens what they're really dealing with. She activated the planetary communication system and sent a message directly to the approaching alien fleet. Her voice was calm but carried the authority of someone who commanded the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Attention alien vessels. This is General Sandra Mitchell, Supreme Commander of Earth Defense Forces. You are entering our solar system with hostile intent. You have been deceived about our true capabilities. We suggest you reconsider your invasion plans. Commander Vexithara received the message with shock. Not only were the humans communicating directly with his fleet, but they were doing it in perfect Zephyrian language. That meant they had been listening to his communications and had learned his language without him knowing it. How is this possible? He asked his crew. They're speaking our language perfectly. And how did they know we were planning an invasion? Scout Captain Zarketh looked terrified as he studied his sensor readings. Commander, my instruments are showing impossible numbers. I'm detecting over 10,000 spacecraft in this system. There are weapon platforms on every moon and asteroid. The planet itself appears to be one giant military base. That's impossible, Vexthara replied, but his voice lacked conviction. Everything his sensors were telling him contradicted what they had observed during their scouting mission. Lieutenant Colonel Matt Johnson activated the communication jamming systems that had been hidden throughout the solar system. Suddenly, the Zephyrian fleet found themselves cut off from their home world. They could not call for help or report what they were seeing. Communication jamming is active, Matt reported to the human commanders. The alien fleet cannot contact their home base. They're on their own. The moment of full revelation came when Admiral Murphy gave the order that changed everything. All ships decloak and take battle positions. Let them see what they're really facing. Across the solar system, human warships suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Ships that had been hiding behind moons, asteroids, and planets revealed themselves. In a display of military might that took the Zephyrians' breath away, the empty space around Earth was suddenly filled with thousands of human spacecraft. Commander Vexithara watched in horror as his scanners registered ship after ship appearing around his small fleet. What had looked like empty space was actually filled with a naval force that outnumbered his invasion fleet by more than 100 to 1. This is impossible, he whispered. Where did all these ships come from? Captain Jake Morrison smiled as he watched from Defense Station Alpha 7. Welcome to the real Earth, he said to his crew. I bet they weren't expecting this. On the planet, surface, the final phase of the revelation began. Across every continent, the ground opened up to reveal massive gun installations that had been hidden for decades. Cities that had looked peaceful were suddenly bristling with defensive weapons. Military bases that had appeared small and weak were showing their true size as millions of soldiers poured out of underground tunnels. Captain Nicole Wright led her troops to the surface, where they took positions around the area where the aliens were expected to attempt a landing. Her soldiers were equipped with weapons and armor that was more advanced than anything the Zephyrians had seen. Look at their faces, she said to her second-in-command as they watched the alien ships through their telescopes. They're starting to realize they made a big mistake. Dr. Alex Carter continued monitoring the alien communications from his laboratory. Now that he could understand their language, he was listening to growing panic in their voices. Commander, what are your orders? One alien voice asked over the radio. We're outnumbered by thousands to 1. Their technology appears to be equal to or better than ours. I don't know, came Vexithara's reply, and for the first time, he sounded afraid. This is not what our intelligence reported. Something has gone very wrong. The truth was finally becoming clear to the Zephyrian commander. The primitive world they thought they were conquering was actually the most heavily defended planet they had ever encountered. The humans had not only hidden their true military strength, but they had also been preparing for this exact moment for decades. General Mitchell sent another message to the alien fleet, this time with a different tone. Commander Vexthara, you are surrounded and outnumbered. Your communication with your home world has been cut off. You have 2 choices: surrender immediately or face the consequences of attacking the most powerful military force in the galaxy. The alien commander looked around his bridge at his terrified crew. For the first time in Zephyrian history, An invasion force was facing an enemy that was stronger than they were. The age of easy conquest was over, and they were about to become the first victims of humanity's true power. Commander Vexithara stared at the massive human fleet surrounding his ships and knew that his military career was over. In 800 years of Zephyrian expansion, no commander had ever faced odds like these. His 15 warships were surrounded by thousands of human spacecraft, each one pointing weapons at his fleet. "Commander, what are your orders?" asked Scout Captain Zarketh, his voice trembling with fear. Vexithara looked at his tactical display one more time. The numbers were impossible to ignore. Even if his ships fought with perfect coordination, they would be destroyed within minutes. The humans had not just superior numbers, they also had weapons technology that matched or exceeded Zephyrian capabilities. "Open a communication channel to the human commander," he said quietly. "We need to discuss terms." It was the first time in Zephyrian history that a fleet commander had ever spoken those words. General Sandra Mitchell received the alien communication request with satisfaction. The deception had worked perfectly. The aliens who had come to conquer Earth were now begging to negotiate. "This is General Mitchell. You may speak, Commander Vexithara." "General Mitchell, I am requesting permission to withdraw my fleet from your system. We seem to have made an error in our intelligence gathering." Sandra smiled. "I'm afraid withdrawal is not an option, Commander. You came here with hostile intent. Your fleet will surrender immediately or face destruction. You have 60 seconds to decide." On the alien flagship, panic filled the bridge. Officers who had spent their lives conquering other worlds were now facing the possibility of becoming prisoners themselves. Vexithara knew he had only one choice that would save the lives of his crew. "All ships, this is Commander Vexithara. Power down all weapons and shields. We are surrendering to the human forces." The words echoed through the Zephyrian fleet, creating shock and disbelief among the crews. No Zephyrian military force had ever surrendered without firing a single shot. Admiral Kate Murphy moved her fleet into position around the alien ships. "All boarding teams prepare to take control of the enemy vessels. Captain Danny Clark, your team will secure the flagship." Captain Danny Clark had been preparing for this moment for years. He led a team of specially trained soldiers onto the alien command ship, where they found a crew of defeated and confused aliens who offered no resistance. "Commander Vexithara, you are now a prisoner of the Earth Defense Forces," Danny announced as he placed restraints on the alien commander. "You and your crews will be treated according to our military laws." Vexithara looked around at the human soldiers with amazement. Their equipment was more advanced than anything his people had developed. Their organization was perfect, and their discipline was impressive. These were not the primitive beings his scouts had described. "How is this possible?" he asked Danny. "Our intelligence showed that your people were barely capable of spaceflight." "Your intelligence was wrong," Danny replied. "We've been preparing for visitors like you for over 70 years. Everything you saw during your scouting mission was designed to fool you." Dr. Alex Carter was brought aboard the alien flagship to begin studying their technology and questioning the prisoners. He was amazed by what he learned from speaking with the Zephyrian officers. "You've conquered 47 worlds?" he asked Commander Vexithara during his first interview. "Yes. Your world was supposed to be the 48th. Each conquest took only days because the local species were too primitive to resist our technology." "What happens to the people on those worlds after you conquer them?" Vexithara looked uncomfortable. "They become part of the Zephyrian Empire. They work for us and provide resources for our expansion." Alex felt anger growing inside him. These aliens were not just invaders, they were enslavers who had destroyed the freedom of billions of beings across the galaxy. Dr. Emma Walsh joined the investigation teams, studying the alien ships and learning about their technology. What she discovered was both impressive and disturbing. Their ships are powerful, but their military strategy is based on overwhelming primitive opponents, she reported to General Mitchell. "They've never had to fight an enemy with equal or superior technology. That's why they were so easily defeated." "What about their home world?" asked the general. "According to their star charts, the Zephyrian Empire controls hundreds of star systems, but their military is spread thin across all those conquered worlds. They don't have large concentrated forces because they've never needed them. This information gave the human commanders an important insight. The Zephyrian Empire was powerful because of its size, but it was also vulnerable because it had never faced a real challenge. General Peter Collins called a meeting of all the senior commanders to discuss what to do next. We now have detailed information about an empire that has enslaved 47 worlds. The question is, what do we do about it? Admiral Tony Rodriguez, who had been studying the alien star charts, had a suggestion. We could launch our own expedition to free those conquered worlds. We have the military strength to challenge the Zephyrian Empire. That would mean taking our forces far from Earth, replied Colonel Lisa Bennett. Are we ready for that kind of commitment? General Mitchell looked at the faces around the table. Gentlemen and ladies, we've just proven that humanity can defend itself against alien invasion. But defending ourselves is not enough. We have a responsibility to help others who cannot defend themselves. President Helen Brooks made the final decision when she addressed the United Nations the next day. The capture of the Zephyrian fleet has given us knowledge of an empire that has enslaved billions of innocent beings across the galaxy. We cannot ignore this injustice. I am authorizing Operation Liberation, a military expedition to free the conquered worlds. The news sent shockwaves around the world. Humanity was not just defending Earth anymore. They were preparing to become a galactic military power with a mission to protect the weak and fight oppression. Fleet Admiral Linda Parker was chosen to command the Liberation Fleet. She had spent 20 years preparing for deep space operations, and now she would lead humanity's first interstellar military expedition. How many ships and troops will we need? She asked the planning committee. Our intelligence suggests that we'll need at least 1,000 ships and 10 million soldiers, replied Admiral Murphy. Each conquered world will need to be liberated and then defended, while its people rebuild their freedom. The preparations took 6 months. During that time, the captured Zephyrian crews were studied and interrogated. Some of them, shocked by what they learned about human values and military ethics, actually volunteered to help with the liberation effort. Scout Captain Zarketh was one of the aliens who decided to cooperate with the humans. My people have been told that conquest brings order to the galaxy, he explained to Dr. Carter. But seeing how you treat prisoners and protect the weak, I realize we have been wrong. The day finally came when the Liberation Fleet was ready to launch. 1,000 human starships filled the space around Earth, each one carrying the most advanced military technology humanity had ever developed. 10 million soldiers, the largest interstellar army in galactic history, prepared to bring freedom to worlds that had been enslaved for decades. Fleet Admiral Parker stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Earth Defense Ship Liberation, as the massive fleet prepared to jump into hyperspace. All ships, this is Admiral Parker. Today we begin a new chapter in galactic history. We go not as conquerors, but as liberators. We carry with us the hopes of billions of enslaved beings who have waited too long for freedom. The fleet jumped into hyperspace, heading toward the first of the conquered worlds. Behind them, Earth continued its watch of the galaxy, now revealed as the home of the most powerful military force in known space. Commander Vexithara, still a prisoner on Earth, watched the Liberation Fleet depart through the window of his cell. He turned to his guard and said quietly, "My people made a terrible mistake when we came here. We thought we were conquering a primitive world. Instead, we awakened a sleeping giant that will change the galaxy forever." The age of easy conquest was over. Humanity had taken its place as the protector of the weak and the enemy of galactic bullies. The aliens who came to enslave Earth had, instead, given birth to the greatest force for freedom the galaxy had ever seen.